As the Spurs continue to mount their climb in the Western Conference, a lot of trade reports have been circulating about what may come next, and one writer proposes a crazy trade that sends Dante DiVincenzo to the San Antonio Spurs, and that could actually be quite a good fit. We gotta dive into the pros and cons of that. Plus, a look at the Spurs over the past 10 games highlights some very encouraging trends, and also some news out of Chicago that has some big implications for the Spurs coming first round pick. So stick around for all that on this episode of Spurs Digest. But guys, as always, we're trying to hit 3,000 subscribers before Christmas. 25 days away. 80% of you watching this video haven't hit that button yet. It's completely free. We got Spurs content all season long. Trades, news, rumors, reports, all that good stuff. Hit that subscribe button down below so we can keep you up to date. Let's start the video. And I want to first talk a bit about the whole Chicago situation. This comes from the Stein line. Jake Fisher's latest said all eyes are on the Windy City this NBA shopping season. No team, as Fisher explains in his latest dispatch, is being monitored by rivals for potential trade activity more than the formerly trade-shy Bulls. Now, the big thing with the Chicago Bulls is they've garnered a little bit of a reputation of not wanting to trade any of their players. They're the team that has made the fewest trades in the past number of years in the NBA. And, well, they did make a trade with the Spurs. That whole DeMar DeRozan stuff, that went down. And out of that trade, the Spurs got a 2025 protected first-round pick. So, the big question now is that we see Chicago may be big-time sellers. They may be ready to go full-on tank mode. They apparently, reportedly, have made pretty much everyone on their roster up for trade, or at least up for trade talks. So what does this mean for the Spurs? Well, the 2025 first-round pick, I believe, is protected 1 through 14, or it could be 1 through 10. I don't remember. It's one of the two. Either way, as of right now, that pick is not looking like it's going to convey. It looks like the Bulls are not going to be doing very good. And if they fully commit to this tank, they'll probably not be good for a few years. Because if the Spurs don't get that pick this season in 2025, in 26 and 27, the next 2 years, that pick is top 8 protected. Which means, again, if the Bulls are bad and they pull the trigger on the tank over the next 2 seasons, the Spurs won't get that pick at all until 2028. Where if the Spurs don't get that first round pick conveyed in 25, 26, or 27, it turns into a second in 2028. Now, I know, at the end of the day, the feeling of everyone is kind of like, look, we got Wemby in the draft. Doesn't even matter what happens next. But still, setting yourself up for future success like we have with these Atlanta Hawks picks, whether it's for trading in the future or for drafting players yourself, this can have a big impact. So hearing this out of Chicago is a bit interesting. They're changing up their whole game plan, something that I think Spurs fans and even Spurs management probably didn't necessarily see coming when this first trade went down. But just wanted to give you guys an update on that Bulls situation and how it could affect us in the long term. But let's get into something else, or something a little more positive. Not, oh, the Spurs might lose a first round pick. No, I want to talk about some stuff over the last 10 games. And there's some interesting stats I wanted to show you guys. Now, we know the Spurs have had some ups and downs this year, but overall, they're performing quite well. Right now, it's a tough Western Conference, but the Spurs right now, they actually can even win their NBA Cup division if they beat the Phoenix Suns coming up this week. They straight up can because of how that OKC LA game went down. But overall, let's look at how they've been performing. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys is this. Which teams, I've sorted this, it looks like I sorted by most, but I actually sorted this by fewest turnovers in the NBA in the last 10 games. The Spurs have the 7th fewest turnovers in the NBA over the last 10 games. They're averaging just 13.4 turnovers a game in their last 10. That's the best mark in the league. The Blazers have the most with 17.5 per game, but the Spurs are only 1 turnover per game worse than the Phoenix Suns, who are the least turnover-prone team. And for me, this is a huge sign of things to come, because in that game against the Lakers, the Spurs actually had a lot of first half turnovers. It was still a bit of a problem, but this to me is a very important trend, because over the past year or two, the Spurs turnover problem has been significant. I mean, a lot of people mentioning Wemby and how he is very much prone to turnovers. He is definitely getting better. Still a part that he can always improve, but you know, it is what it is. But to see the Spurs team as a whole, now I do think a lot of this probably has to do with Chris Paul running the point, as he is very much not turnover prone. This is a great sign for the future. It shows that the young guys are maturing, but also even a guy like Castle, who's getting a lot of ball handling duties. He's not turning the ball over as much as many other players in the past at his position, at his age, have done, right? When you're handling the ball as much as he is, you expect a young guy who especially has played more of an off-ball role in college and stuff to turn it over a bit more. But no, he went out and put up 7 assists in their last game, 3 for 9 shooting, not amazing, but his passing's been great. not turning it over. Overall, the Spurs have not been turning it over, but it's not just that. They're still top 5 in the league in blocks over the last 10 games, thanks in large part to Wemby. Of course, Jaren Jackson Jr. doing a bit of heavy lifting there for the Grizzlies, but still, I guess Zach Edey, is he playing right now? I don't keep enough tabs on the Grizzlies, if I'm being honest. I try to keep them out of my mind, except for the occasional John Morant highlight. But again, the blocks are up, the turnovers are down. And if we take a look at the efficiency landscape of the NBA, I'm going to make this a bit bigger for you guys. This is, again, over just the last 10 games as of November 29th. So this was as of yesterday when I recorded this. But the Spurs are right there with the Bucks. They're not one of the best teams in the league, but they're above the league average trend line. They're in the positives for defensive efficiency and offensive efficiency. They're in that upper right quadrant, along with teams like Milwaukee, OKC, Memphis, Orlando, Dallas, and Boston, which is, again, such an insanely good sign. I feel like if you told fans this coming into this season, they would be thrilled to hear that the Spurs were performing as good as they have so far, especially with Castle's performance. But yeah, like, this is a great sign. It's just the last 10 games too. I mean, that's, half the season at this point right now, but I think it's a great trend line moving forward, especially with the turnovers. The fact that that number seems to be going down spells some really, really good stuff for this team moving forward. But I want to hear from you guys on that. What do you think about this 10-game stretch? Did these stats kind of change your opinion of what we've seen, or does it just reinforce it? Let me know down below. Final thing, look, trade talks get crazy, okay? But we cover them, whether they're good or bad, crazy or not. We just love to talk about trades because it's the most fun thing in the NBA, right? Even if the trades can get ridiculous at times. And this one, well, the article will be linked down below, written by DC Hendricks. The Spurs could acquire a struggling NBA champion via trade with the Timberwolves. And that struggling NBA champion, well, it's Donte DiVincenzo. And when we're talking about Donte DiVincenzo, he is not doing so great there with Minnesota. But the potential trade offer that they propose here is Tre Jones, the Atlanta first-round pick, and a Charlotte first-round pick. Tre Jones and 2 firsts for Donte DiVincenzo. Now, right away, my immediate reaction is that's way too much. But also, my reaction is going after Donte DiVincenzo is not a crazy thing to say if he's available, right? I don't know if this kind of trade would do it because this also kind of blocks in Rob Dillingham and like Tre Jones and Dillingham might play like some similar roles. I don't know. Like there's some interesting stuff there from the Minnesota side, but if we're just looking from the San Antonio Spurs side, which is what I tend to do, a guy like DiVincenzo actually fits very well stylistically next to what the Spurs have right now. At his peak, he's an incredible shooter. He scores a good amount of buckets. He's solid on the defensive end. And him as a guard, especially if it's like off the bench or something going into the future, could be a really nice fit. I do think this is a bit of an overpay. They do say the Spurs are hanging tough with a 9-8 record. They're sitting 10th in the West, but Paul has been the steady hand. Wemby's back in action after missing some time with an injury. They picked up a big win against the Warriors, but this is from a few days ago, I believe. Harrison Barnes was player of the week. The Spurs could make a move to improve themselves right now, but is it really a great idea? I don't know. I think DiVincenzo is actually due for a change of scenery. We've seen what he can do in the right system. With New York, it was unbelievable. 79% of all his shots are threes, and he's not shooting great from 3 this season. However, we have seen him be able to shoot amazingly from 3 with the right surrounding cast, and let's just call it what it is. Minnesota right now, the culture is not great. The team doesn't play in a style that's necessarily conducive to DiVincenzo's success. Right now, they don't have that kind of big post threat that can suck in defense. Rudy Gobert is not really an offensive threat. Randall is good, but he's definitely not a passer. They don't have the kind of personnel to maximize Donte DiVincenzo's skill set, and I think the Spurs actually do. Now, whether I think this trade will actually go through or not, no, I absolutely don't think that the Wolves are going to trade DiVincenzo right now, especially not for like maybe another point guard like Tre Jones, but it could happen. I think they look at Tre Jones and 2 firsts and they say maybe, but at the end of the day, I'm not really looking at this from the actual mock trade perspective. I'm looking at this in case the Wolves are looking to move on from Donte DiVincenzo for whatever reason. He's struggling. I don't know if they want to sell low, but it might just get worse. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think that could be an interesting target for the Spurs? I want to hear everything down below, but that'll do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for supporting every single day. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.